Amitabha's body is the color of gold. His flesh, his form has no peer. The light of his brow shines on 100 worlds. White as the seaside, his eyes very clear. Shining his brilliance by transformation of Buddhist and visited his 48 vows will liberation. Lotus feet for the shore. Homage to the Buddha of the Western land and compassionate Amitabha. To the Buddha of the Western land and compassionate Amitabha. To the Buddha of the Western land and compassionate Amitabha. Next will be surrender. Namo Amito. There's a way to do that. Wait. Yeah, then go first, go back there. You turn this way, okay, go back, then go back, come back. Go back to the seats, go back to the seats. I go this way, actually, two people go this way, and the man will turn this way, face each other, and then we walk out this way, and then first, like we, okay?
Go around the chair so they go in the front.
The front is fine. Namo Amito. Thank you. They request the Dharma. Will the Sangha with great virtues, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth. Nam mô Sa Đăng Tô Sư Chế Đô Ye Ở La Hờ Đi Sam Yo Sam Pu Tô Xie.
Nam mô Sa Đăng Tô Sư Chế Đô Ye La Hờ Đi Sam Yo Sam Pu Tô Xie.
Nam mô Sa Đăng Tô Sư Chế Đô Ye Ở La Hờ Đi Sam Yo Sam Pu Tô Xie.
Nam mô Sa Đăng Tô Sư Chế Đô Ye Sam Yo Sam Pu Tô Xie.
Nam mô Sa Đăng Tô Sư Chế Đô Ye Ở La Hờ Đi Sam Yo Sam Pu Tô Xie.
Nam mô Sa Đăng Tô Sư Chế Đô Ye Ở La Hờ Đi Sam Yo Sam Pu Tô Xie.
The unsurpassed, deep, profound, subtle, wonderful Dharma in 100,000 million aeons is difficult to encounter. Now that I've come to receive and hold it within my sight and hearing, I vow to fathom the first come one's true and actual meaning. All Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Great Master Shenhua, all with known advisors, Amitofo. So after attaining the way, he thought, to leave desire behind, to gain calmness and tranquility is supreme. Desire could be explained in terms of the 5 desires. In Buddhism, we have 5 kinds of desires. They're basically fame, food, sex, sleep, and what else? What else is missing? What? Wealth. That's correct. All right. That's what drives us, living beings in our world. Those are desires that make us do things, make us get up in the morning and go to work. When the Buddha says to leave desire behind, meaning that it's not really leaving desire behind, but it means that to see through desires, to not let those desires drive us. Okay? Not to let those desires confuse us.
And to gain calmness and tranquility is supreme. Now, it appears when you read calmness and tranquility, there appears to be redundancy, doesn't it? Calmness, peace, tranquility, aren't they the same things? What does calmness refer to? Calmness refers to your personal state of being. It's inner calmness and outer tranquility. It is supreme, meaning that in terms of enjoyment, in terms of happiness, there's none that can be better than inner peace and outer tranquility. Okay, now these standards are pretty high when you think about it. How can you talk about inner peace when you have so many things in your mind? Where do those thoughts come from? They're driven by your own desires. That's why if you're able to leave desire behind and see through desires and cut off desires, then you'll be able to reach a state of inner peace, inner tranquility. All right? And notice the order of the words here. He uses calmness first and then tranquility afterwards. What does it really mean? Meaning it's really the inside that drives the outside. The environment is only in response to your own inner state of being. This is a very powerful statement, folks. It's very casual because when the ordinary person, including myself, I read this sutra several times. And when I got this section about this very first section here, I read, leave desire behind. Yeah, we desire, you define desire, and define calmness and tranquility. But you fail to see the depth of the teaching here. If you have inner peace, then you can attain outer tranquility. Okay? And the converse, it may not be true. Even if you have outer tranquility, you may not attain inner peace. Or even when the outside is very chaotic, it doesn't mean that the inner is unpeaceful. Okay? How does it apply to you? Take it to when you look at this here, the reaction of some of you might be, okay, I made it to a pretty high level of calmness in terms of samadhi. Okay? But what the Buddha refers to here, the kind of samadhi power and peace and tranquility here, exceeds those of the externalists, exceeds those of the people who reach 8th level samadhi. That's the highest that the externalists can attain. And even the arhats, after they reach the level of samadhi, meaning the samadhi of total extinction, meaning nothing whatsoever, their peace, their inner peace and tranquility is still not supreme yet. He is reminding even the arhats here that you keep at it, you can reach a still much higher level of calmness and tranquility. Okay? So there you go. From Buddha's perspective, you can reach the state of samadhi of the enlightened beings in Mahayana, which is very peaceful, very blissful. And you go to a lower level, you can reach the samadhi power of the arhats, okay, which is incredible. Their samadhi is so incredible. Their state is so blissful already, okay, but still not supreme yet. And you go to the lower level, you reach the samadhi power of the externalists. Let's say the Taoists or the Tai Chi trained people. They reach 8th level samadhi, and they're pretty good. They're so blissful that they become attached to it very easily. And that's still not optimal yet. But what about us, the ordinary people? What about calmness and tranquility? How can you use it? Anger. You have to pay attention. See, the ordinary folks talk about the pursuit of happiness, and they have no clues on how to do it or what are the pitfalls of that pursuit. This is the clue right here. If we seek happiness as ordinary people, the first thing we need to seek for is inner peace. You have to be happy inside first. Okay? If your happiness is based on external factors, like your happiness is based on your spouse praising you or approving of you, okay? That's considered external factors. That is not of the highest priority. Your priority in seeking happiness is make sure that you can be happy by yourself. Okay? Without relying on others. Because if you depend on someone else to be happy, what happens to your happiness when that person is gone? When he or she changes her mind about you? Okay? So the happiness of yours is of short duration. Okay? But does that mean that you should neglect the external factors when you seek happiness? Look at them yourself going to work. Can you say, I go to work, I feel good about my work, I ignore about my co-workers, my boss, my secretary? You can't. You make the mistake of ignoring your work environment. You won't be happy at work. The job becomes such an unhappy place for you to be. So pay attention. All right? He abided in deep meditative concentration. What he means here, this came from Chinese as great samadhi. The Buddha is constantly in samadhi, unlike us. See, we work so hard to be able to reach various levels of samadhis. And then what happens is that our samadhis we enter and exit our samadhis. We can't stay there forever. Okay? For example, even the best of the externalists, let's say the yogi, the guru in an ashram in India, the kung fu is incredible. They have the samadhi power is pretty high. So are the spiritual powers. And the best they can do, they can enter samadhi and stay there for 80,000 great kalpas. That's a lot of years. Okay? It's a lot of years, a lot longer than you care to count. You care to keep track of. But trust me, for 80,000 great kalpas, they can be in samadhi. And then, at the end of the 80,000 great kalpas, a thought arises. And they exit samadhi. And they suffer again. Alright? So, the nature of their samadhi is it has a duration. Okay? So when in contrast, the Buddha is the only living being in our Dharma realm that can be constantly in samadhi. He's the only one. And while he was in samadhi, he subdued every demon and externalist. What's a demon? What is the difference between a demon and a ghost? Demon is personal. Okay, there's some personal demons. by some personal ghosts as well. You don't realize the ghosts possess you. It does happen.
The demons are evil.
The last chant class, I have people are possessed by ghosts. I try to give them some hints on how I could help them, but they never listen. Therefore, it's just the way it is. You can be possessed by ghosts too. So those ghosts become personal. They become you. You can't tell the difference. Anyone else? What's the difference between a demon and a ghost? Ah, you're getting close.
Some ghosts can be good, some bad, but
Okay, along the same line, yes, very good. It's very close. Demons are evil, meaning that they mean to harm you. They're no good. Their existence is predicated upon inflicting harm on you, making you afflicted, making you lose your samadhi power, making you fall, making you make mistakes, making you get angry. Okay? And they are very good at that. They have many more powers than the ghosts. The ghosts are like the small-time demons. Okay? The demons are much broader. For example, Master Shenhua says, our computers are really an invention of heavenly demons. That's how powerful they are. They gave us something that we cannot do without. Think about it. We become dependent on computers more and more. Good question. Heavenly demons. Heavenly demon is one kind of demon. There are 4 kinds of demons. We go into that down the road. But the heavenly demons are one of the most powerful demons. They happen to live in the 6th desire heaven, the highest level of heaven in our desire realm. That's where my father was reborn, by the way. And he came back to visit my brother. And what they thrive on doing is get us confused and without us knowing it. Okay? For example, computer is something that you can be so beneficial to us, at the same time can be so harmful to us as well. If you allow yourself, how do you avoid the dangers of how can you escape the demon's trap? Make sure you don't depend on it. Use it, but do not be attached to it. So, for example, if you have a computer, use it, but don't make it so that your existence totally is relying on computers. Okay? It's a fact of life. We live in a world of mutual interdependency. The ghosts, the demons cannot really survive without us. They need us to as their targets, as their purpose in life is to give us a lot of afflictions. Without living beings, ghosts and demons wouldn't exist. There's no reason to exist. Okay? So since we're here, they come and bother us and try to confuse us and give us things that make us confused. Recognize them as they are. It's nothing to worry about. All right? The externalists. Again, externalists are, in general, the non-Buddhist practitioners. At the Buddha's time, there were, in India, the Hinduists, the Brahmins, who are non-Buddhists. Externalists, by definition, are the people who practice a dharma that is not whose basis is outside of the mind. All right? It will be clearer over time. They missed it. They got it all wrong. They don't even know it. But that's all right. In time, they'll understand. That's what happens. Later on in a lecture, the Buddha went on and after he attained the way, okay, he was in samadhi and he subdued. To subdue is really based on virtues. You don't subdue people by brute force. Okay? Yes, the demons realize that, and the externalists realize that they cannot win over the Buddha, but that doesn't mean they have to respect him or listen to his advices. Okay? To subdue is to inspire respect by the Buddha's virtues, not by his strength, by his wisdom. All right? A very important distinction in Buddhism. We subdue the non-believers, the people who want to harm us. We don't harm them. All right? That's a huge difference in Buddhism. In the deer park, he turned the Dharma wheel of the Four Noble Truths and took across Ashnata, Kondinya, and the other 4 disciples who all realized the fruition of the way. Okay. When you read about the story of the life of Buddha, you may read about the fact that after he became enlightened and he was tested by the demons and passed the demons' test. Okay. He then contemplated what to do next. And then he looked at the Saha world and realized that these living beings, the human beings, are very obstinate, very hard-headed. They're not willing to listen. They're very arrogant. And therefore he decided not to teach. He said, these guys are pretty low in my list of things to help, of living beings to help. Okay? So he sat there and decided what to continue to contemplate. Okay. Now, as Buddha, there's a lot of things and places that he can contemplate. People he can contemplate, living beings he can contemplate. But at that point in time, the king of the first samadhi heaven, okay, he's even more venerated than the Christian God. Okay, he is the king of the first dhyana heaven. He's very well known throughout our world, more so than a Christian God, because he has a broader scope than a Christian God. Okay, this guy here really believes that living beings are his children. His children. Yes. And that's why he's very kind to all living beings, even more kind than a Christian God. Christian God says, love me, respect me, then I will reward you. Right? There's a quid pro quo here. You have to do something for me before I do something for you. It's not the soul with when you're a parent. See, this first dhyana, God King here, King God here, really believes that all living beings, all humans, all living beings are his offspring. Therefore, he loves them like his own children. Okay? When he realized the Buddha is about to bypass living beings, humans, in the Saha world, his children, he panicked. He said, I better do something about it. I better protect my children. So he quickly appeared in front of the Buddha, circumambulated the Buddha innumerable times. See, we do it only 3 times here as a symbol. Okay. But actually, when they request Dharma, they request it as many, they circumambulate the Buddha many, many times. And then he knelt. And then he requested the Buddha to teach his children, to bring his teaching to the Sara world, to our world. Okay? He did it like by making the request 3 times. That's the Buddhist Dharma for requesting Dharma. When you do it in the proper way, the Buddha cannot refuse. So, if even the Buddha cannot refuse, his own Buddhist disciples can certainly not refuse it when people know how to request Dharma to them. Aha, that's a hint for you out there. If you want, let's say, more Dharma, to listen more Dharmas, you have to learn to request the Dharmas. For example, I dropped the hints many, many times that the DRBA has pretty good lecturers. The last time Venerable Heng Shu came down here was like last January, right? And the time before that was about 7 or maybe 9 years ago. 9 years ago, 8, 9 years ago. Okay? He would go everywhere else, but not Long Beach or Los Angeles to lecture. He came down here for some official business. Why is that? Because you guys never know how to request him to come down here. Okay? Did you enjoy his lectures? Did you learn a lot from his lectures? No, you didn't learn that much. Okay? He taught so much more than you can realize. That's the depth of his teaching. See, I'm different. When I teach you Chan, I have to make it very specific to you. I said, okay, I don't have a lot of time. Nor do you. Okay? You are non-believers anyway, so if I don't help you, give you shortcuts, then you lose interest very quickly. So I have to devise shortcuts and expedients to help you make progress very quickly. All right? But Venerable Heng Shu, just like when I lecture here, he has to teach people of a whole spectrum of levels. And therefore the teaching has to be very deep as well. Okay? So trust me. It may appear like you're not learning much, but he has so much information packed into his simple words, his simple stories. Okay? And that's what he did to me 12 years ago. He did everything to make him despise him and lose my respect for him, just to test me. And sure enough, I never respected the man. And the next thing he did is he did everything in his power to encourage me to leave the DRBA. That's him. And while he was doing that, he was teaching me so much. That's incredible. So when he did that, I was pretty mad at him. I said, this guy here is such a mean monk. But I was so stupid. It was not him. It was me. Remember the thing about calmness and tranquility? That's a message right there. Okay? No matter what happens out there, no matter what people tell you and say to you, it's you who decide to lose your cool. And then you blame others for your lack of self-control, of your unhappiness. Is basically your own doing, no one else's, right? Basically, someone comes along to you and say, I don't like your shirt. I don't like your tie. It looks ridiculous. And off you go. The same sentence, it was said to another person, he and she would have an entirely different reaction to yours, your own. And yet you are the one who decides to lose your cool, to lose your control, become so unhappy, and then you blame that person. See, the teaching is so wonderful. After 10 years of licking my wounds and feeling sorry for myself, I finally realized that monk, Venerable Shua, taught me so much that I became so grateful. Okay, and then I can't wait for the next chance for me to bow to him, to say thank you. The last time he came to my father's funeral, he was wearing a black robe. I went there and said, "Oh, this is it. This is my chance to bow to him, both to thank him for teaching me, for having taught me in the past, okay, in a reverse way, and then coming to my father's funeral for honoring my father's achievements, okay? When you die in Asia, especially in Vietnam, no matter how bad of a person you are, okay, people will still have to honor you and pay respects to you by coming to your funeral. Only when you're a worthless person that they can skip your funeral. So my father, when he died, when he passed away, and he was not a very good terms with the DRBA, maybe superficially he was, but basically he has 1 foot outside the DRBA and 1 foot inside. He's still a hung platform person, but he lives in a not DRBA temple. See, I'm totally outside, thanks to Mr. Heng Shua. Okay, I have him to thank for that. Because my training, I was meant to be trained a different way, not the same as Heng Shua was. And but when he came to my father's funeral, I was so touched. I said, "This is a man who knew that I hated his guts. He wasn't sure I was over my hatred. Let me put it that way. Okay, my feeling was pretty intense at some point in time. That when I left the army, I said, if I ever succeed, if I ever can make anything at all meaningful out of my life as a left form person, if I don't return to lay life, I don't backtrack. If I stay as a monk, okay, I can consider myself to be a failure until the day that I can get over this hatred. Okay, that I someday could bow to him. Okay, and so I was so happy to see him there at my father's funeral at this funeral home, and I said, my chance to bow to him and express, to teach the other folks. Okay, he was there by himself, no escorts. He has only one lay person as his escort, and he wore a red robe. He only wears red robe into when he attends very, very important Buddhist ceremonies. Okay? For example, the governor of California invited him to attend his inauguration. Okay? So he asked, should I wear a red robe or a yellow robe? Okay? And then I understand he finally went there wearing a yellow robe or maybe a red, I don't know. So it's still debatable. The red robe is such a very formal event. Yet he wore to my father's funeral a small-time monk. Okay. So I was so grateful. I said, and so the whole assembly, when he went there, and Shu went there, Venerable Shu went there, well, there were about maybe 400 or 500 people in that small funeral home meeting hall, and they were not properly respectful to him because the majority of the people there were basically Vietnamese. My Vietnamese master is there, and he's the highest level ranking monk. And he even has seniority over Venerable Shu, and therefore he takes up all the attention. But I noticed that people were not properly respectful to Venerable Shu and the significance of his wearing a red robe. So I decided I would make sure I bow to him in front of everyone else, including my own brother, okay? My mother, everyone else. And guess what happens? Don't bow to me. He told me, you are forbidden to bow to me. Never said a word to me, but he made it clear to me that his message to me is that, don't you dare. So anyway, I don't know why I got to that, but basically,
why didn't you want to bow to him?
huh?
Why didn't you want to bow to him? Because you felt so.
Because I'm not sure. I have to ask him next time. I think I know why, but I can't explain it to you. Maybe sometime down the road I will. He has very good reasons why he wouldn't let me bow to him, and the fact that I he didn't request me not to bow to him. Okay, if he requested me not to bow to him, then I would have to do that. Okay, but he basically, the way he did it left me an option of bowing to him. Okay, you have ways of dealing with each other as monks and nuns. Okay, we have certain protocol, etiquette, and if you do certain things the proper way, then it takes out a lot of options out of the way. So he left me the option of bowing him, but I decided not to bow to him because it was better for him. I decided. So anyway, I could bow him the next time around. So maybe I bow him in private. All right. Any questions so far? Deer Park is a very, very famous locale in the Hindu circle of cultivators back then. This is a place where a lot of externalists gather together to practice the Kung Fu. You go there and you see the who's who of the externalists. All right? And this is where his 5 attendants, remember his five uncles chased after him upon his father's orders, the king's order to bring the Buddha back. And since they couldn't convince him since they couldn't talk him to come back with them, they followed him to practice with him, waiting for a chance. And then when they saw that they couldn't take it, or they saw that they need to part the ways, they left the Buddha and went to the Deer Park and continued the cultivation. All right? Because they have no place to go. They can't go back to the kingdom because they still don't have the Buddha with them. All right? And they don't believe in the path the Buddha took. So the best place for them is the Deer Park. So the Buddha, after the first Dhyana God King requests the Dharma, did it the proper way, the Buddha agreed. He said, okay, I'm going to try to bring my Dharma to teach human beings, your children. Okay? And so when he decided to do that, he has to contemplate who to cross over first. Okay? So that he contemplated, he saw that his 5 ex-attendants conditions were right to be crossed over. Okay? That's why he went to Deer Park and then turn the Dharma wheel. To turn the Dharma wheel is a Buddhist phrase. That means teach the Buddha Dharma. Okay? Why the reference to the Dharma wheel? What does the Dharma wheel mean? Anyone can explain to me? Dharma wheel has two major connotations that you ask any teacher, they will tell you, any Buddhist who's knowledgeable about Buddhism would tell you that Dharma wheel has 2 connotations. Okay, to teach and to subdue. Okay, to teach. Because the Dharma wheel, the principles are like a wheel, one after another. Okay? And to subdue is the wheel can crush over anything, can roll over anything in its way. Okay? And no matter what kind of obstacle you have, I show you a wheel big enough that it can roll over it and crush it. Okay? So it has subduing connotation. That's because it goes back to the very first time he turns the Dharma wheel, the Buddha turns the Dharma wheel, is to cross over his 5 externalists. Alright? So he's subduing these 5 ex-attendants by teaching them. Alright? But actually, it also has, if you ask me, Dharma wheel also has a few more meanings. Look at the structure of the wheel. Okay, the wheel has spokes inside and has a round thing outside. Okay, so that represent its structure. It's structured so that you have a basis, a foundation, the spokes, and then the external things that works, right? So that symbolizes that when the Buddha turns the Dharma wheel, actually it teaches us about the principles as well as the specifics. That's the Buddha Dharma. Very important distinction here, because if you study Buddhism at the universities, okay, they grant you a degree based on your understanding of the principles, right? That is hardly Buddhism at all, as far as we are concerned, because that is only a portion of it. Buddhism, Mahayana, is also about the actual putting the principles into the practice. Okay? That makes a wheel useful. To talk about principles and not being able to apply them in practice, your knowledge falls short. It's not complete. All right? So, another meaning about the wheel is that the circle is a so-called perfect shape in human knowledge. Okay? The sutras that the Buddha teach are really perfect. They're beautiful from beginning to end. Okay? It's perfect. Really, it's perfect for your needs and my needs. Number 3 is that unlike the Theravada believers, it's more the Hinayana practitioners. They believe only one Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, in this world. Actually, there are many Buddhas in many, many worlds. Each Buddha is turning a Dharma wheel throughout the Dharma wheel. So it's a network of Buddhas who are turning a Dharma wheels throughout the Dharma realms. Okay? Look up in the skies. There's so much more out there you can't see. And you can only imagine. Okay? The Sangha world, our world is Shakyamuni Buddha's world. His Buddha land is basically the Milky Way. One galaxy. There's so many more galaxies. Okay? Okay. So, there's a network of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who are turning the Dharma wheel throughout the Dharma wheel. I bring it to your attention because I want your mind to open up, not be so limited to your own sense organs. There's so much more out there. All right. Of the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths are the foundation of Hinayana teaching. Okay? What are they? Four Noble Truths refer to the truth of. A truth is a universal truth that is true in time and in space. Okay? It won't change. It's forever. It's true in the past. It's true in the future. It's true for you. It's true for me. It's true for all living beings. Anywhere in the universe. What are the truths? The truths, the four truths. Number 1 truth is the truth of suffering. Number 2 is accumulation. Number 3 is extinction. Number 4 is the way. The only 4 truths. That is unchanged. Okay. What is the truth of suffering? The truth of suffering is that, how do I guess? Suffering is a state of being for living beings in a Sangha world. Okay? Sufferings can be divided into either 3 kinds of sufferings or 8 kinds of sufferings. In 3 kinds of suffering, there's suffering within suffering, suffering of decay, and suffering of the life process. Suffering within suffering is basically you suffer, you're in misery already, and yet you add insult to injury. All right? For example, your wife left you already, and then now your dog doesn't like you anymore. It also runs away from home. Okay? I don't know what hurts more, but it's suffering within suffering. Number 2, okay, suffering of decay. The suffering within suffering is when you're so destitute, you're so poor, you have nothing. It's just a lot of suffering, right? Now, suffering and decay is just the opposite of that. You have a lot, but then you lose it. This is suffering from your loss. See, the prior one is suffering because of you don't have of inadequacy. Okay? Don't have enough. Number 2 is that you have enough. Or maybe you have a lot, but then you lose it. That is unbearable. Okay? I don't know about you, but for the normal person, the first time you fall in love and fall out of love, falling out of love is a primary example of suffering and decay. It destroys you. Number 3 is suffering of life process, meaning that you age. What are you going to do about it? You might say that, okay, I'm not that poor, so I don't have to worry about number one. Number two, I'm not that rich either, so don't, I let Bill Gates worry about his money. I don't have that problem. Okay, I just have enough to take care of myself and family. But then it's number three, so it doesn't mean you're not suffering. You're not exempt from suffering at all. Number three is everyone suffers. We are dying. Our body's dying. Nothing you can do about it, including the externalists. Remember? They can suspend the dying process for 80,000 great kalpas, and then they age again. Okay? The Taoists, immortals, have the false notion that they can be immortals. Actually, they can live for about 10,000 years, much less than the Hindus. But it's a big deal for them. But they eventually will die, because eventually, see, these guys practice certain kung fu that allows them to suspend the aging process. Suspend it, not end it. Okay, so anyway, they all have to suffer the life process, the aging process, the dying process. Or you can talk about the 8 kinds of sufferings. First 4 sufferings are birth, aging, sickness, and death, normally. Okay? You can't escape that. Number 5 is the suffering from being apart of the one you love. It's about your attachment, especially love. Okay? Tearing apart from a loved one is a very unpleasant experience. Or you can talk about the people at work. Have to work near the people that you really detest. That's terrible. I don't know about you. When I was working, I always find myself sitting next to a guy who hates my guts. Everywhere I went. So I got to the point, okay, so I don't have to worry about it. Let me raise to the executive ranks. Now, they don't have to like me. And guess what? They all detest me. Anyway, so it's not pleasant to go to work in that kind of environment. Let me tell you, it's hell for the employees. Think about it. If they're unhappy, do you think even as an executive or an owner, can be happy showing up in that kind of place? Think again. So you see, all these are simple things that people don't realize. See, the business owner, they say, okay, I'm the owner, I do as I please. Not so. If you do it wrong, the business can turn out to be the most unhappy place for you. Anyway, number 7, not to get what you want. Oh, yeah. That's the worst one, I think. And number 8 is something is the worst of them all. The skanda blaze. You know what that is? What's the skanda?
Skanda is the 5 skandhas of the things that your mind makes up to ruin your life.
Close. Skandhas are Sanskrit for heap. Yes, piling up. It piles. And this is a very nice introduction to the next second truth about accumulation. You see accumulation? Piling up. Okay? The heaps are basically 5 things. The skandhas are 5 skandhas that define you and me. Define the self. This is what the psychologists or the shrink, the crazy people or doctors, they don't understand. See, until you learn how to deal with that, the self is really made up of 5 things. One thing is form. Second is feeling. Third one is cognition. Number 4 is activity or formations. Number 5 is consciousness. And we go into that in the future lectures. Okay. So basically, the 5 things that define the self, as you call yourself. Yourself is basically more accurately described by those 5 skandhas. Okay? Form, meaning your body. Okay? Form. That's what you are. You have body. Feelings. Feelings inside. Cognition. You can recognize things. Okay? You in touch with the exterior, the external, the environment. Okay? Number 4 is formation. See, the 5 skandhas are one of the toughest ones to explain. I was confused for, I kid you not, several years, because I read books after books after books. Okay? And one thing is very confusing is the activity or the formation. Okay? Basically what it is your endless chain of thoughts. That's what it is. Can you stop it? No. No. See, that's us. That's the nature of our mind. Our self has an unending chain of thoughts. Okay. Number 5 is consciousness. The ability to differentiate. Okay. This is where the self really excels at. It can tell about good and bad. Okay. Worst and the best. Good and better. Okay. And that's the nature of the self. What happens is that when the self is described by these 5 variables, okay, you look at those 5 variables, we have zero control over these 5 variables. So they're like a raging blaze that robs us of our treasures. Okay, there's nothing you can do. That to me is real suffering, don't you? Luckily for you, you don't know what they are. So you say, hey, I don't know. You will. Stick around long enough, then you see what I mean. Okay? Don't go hide your head in a sense now. Stick around, you see what I mean? Because the more you understand about these 5 skandhas, the more fascinating Mahayana is. Let me tell you. It's so much fun, so fascinating. So you might say, if they are so much suffering, they are so undesirable, I don't want to know about them. If you don't want to know about them, you never end your suffering. You don't know what hits you, what is bad for you. You can't fix the problem. Can you? What's the number 1 step in problem resolution? Very first thing you need to do, you go to management school, you go to technical school, you go to science school, you go to engineering school, you go to philosophy classes. What's the first thing you do to fix a problem? Define a problem. If you cannot put your arms around the problem, you can't fix it. Can you? Okay? So anyway, so the 4 noble truths of suffering. Okay? Suffering is a thing that we endure. The second truth is that the nature of suffering is that it accumulates. It's not like it's only one form of suffering. The 3 kinds of suffering, the 8 kinds of suffering, they have a way of accruing one on top of another. And number 3 is that, don't panic. I know I've been telling you that doomsday and life can be so unpleasant and so much suffering. But there's a way to end your suffering. I found a way to end your suffering. It's called the path. So those are the 4 truths that the Buddha taught. Okay? Well, how will it work for his 4 ex-attendants? These guys saw him coming from afar and said, he's a loser. You went off the wrong path. You're not supposed to, when you practice ascetic practices, you're not supposed to eat, receive offerings. He gave up on us. He gave up on our path. So he's no longer neither a prince nor a real practitioner either. He's nobody, right? They lost their respect for him. So they what should we do about this guy here? He's our nephew, so on, yeah. But as the close of the Buddha came to them, all of a sudden, all the doubts disappear. The Buddha has what is called an awesome deportment, that his nature, his being, inspires respect. All right. So that's what happens. These guys here, they may think they're great. They may think their samadhi power is pretty high. Their spiritual powers are pretty good. You can practice 6 years up the mountain. We have nothing at all, but your own dharma. You can develop a lot of spiritual powers very quickly. And it turns out that all those spiritual powers, all the samadhi power they have, are not sufficient to give them relief. Case in point, if I can only imagine the Buddha coming over there and say, "Hi boys, hi uncles, okay, greetings from Mahayana. I bring to you a message that says, I can end your suffering." Okay? And those 5 uncles said, "Suffering? Suffering? We don't have any suffering. I don't need your help to end our suffering." Buddha would say, "What do you mean you don't have any suffering? What about the way you feel towards me? Isn't that suffering? You're torn between your feelings towards me as a nephew, as a crown prince. Okay? All those things that are creating so much internal conflict in you. Isn't that suffering?" I said, See? So the Buddha then started to explain to them the 4 Noble Truths. And as during the process explaining that Hinayana Dharma, Venerable Ashnata Kondinya was the first to reach first stage Arhat. Okay? Now, when he says, even in Hinayana, the first stage Arhat is considered sagehood. Okay? And we go on the first stage Arhatship later on in section 1. But basically, it's still considered taking over or crossing over someone, meaning you help that person reach first stage Arhatship. Okay? That's why I mean took across. Ashnata Kondinya, which means first to awaken to. He's the very first of the Buddha's disciples who became a sage. And then he was also the first one to reach Arhatship as well, 4th stage Arhatship as well. Okay? So that's what he means by took across Ashnata Kondinya and the other 4 disciples who realized the fruition of the way. So by the time the Buddha turned the Dharma wheel, the 4 Noble Truths, okay, when he first started, he started to talk about the suffering the guest does. Ashnata Kondinya became an Arhat. And then by the time he explained the Four Noble Truths in all of the Four Noble Truths, all the 5 disciples became 4th-stage arhats. Yes.
Do they realize ownership themselves?
When you talk about realization, the fruition of the way, meaning that they reach that fruition, that wisdom, that the particular word refers to, meaning they obtain the wisdom of an arhat and the samadhi power of an arhat. It's just like you get on the elevator and you press button, arhat, 4th-stage arhat button, and you get off. You get that level. Does that answer your question? You just get up there. I say it again. I couldn't hear you. Go ahead.
Realization.
No, it's not like something the Buddha gives them. It's a state of being. Just like when I certified to you, some of you as having reached 3rd samadhi, 3rd dhyana. That means that you have the concentration power of a 3rd samadhi god or goddess. Okay? Your concentration level is that at that certain level already. That's it. You yourself are there. You can reach that level. It's not me, it's you. Okay?
So they work at it themselves to attain to that level. Sounds like the Buddha enabled them to reach that level.
Yeah, he taught them how to get there. Basically by speaking Dharma to them. See, these folks are much more blessed than you and me. Because, see, that's a good question right there. Because the Buddha, as soon as he's finished explaining the Four Noble Truths to his 5 disciples, guess what happens to them? They became arhats. It didn't happen to me. It's really a function of your blessing level. Okay? Given your blessings level, that's why the Buddha is different than let's say a lower level person, because the Buddha looks at a person and says, which Dharma can I teach this person to help him or her get enlightened quickly? Okay. That's the difference. He taught his 5 disciples, his 5 uncles, and they all became arhats as soon as he finished his sermon. I give you an example. Last week, well, the first week I saw this person here that I've been trying to teach to get to the next level, and he would not listen. Yeah, actually, I taught him a lot more than he realized, just like I'm sure did to me. But but that's my job. And then he failed to understand why I said a lot of things to help him reach his next level very quickly, whereas others had no problems. And then all of a sudden, recently, I'm sure that since he's been practicing, he or she, who knows, okay? All of a sudden, she made it to the next level. After, this is the 3rd lecture now. This is what's fascinating about the Sutra lectures. Okay? When I taught Chan, I had fun. I created something new, a new Dharma to teach you guys, teach you Americans. Okay, the way Chan has been taught before, and that's my fun. Okay, my challenge. But if you have any samadhi power at all, okay, then you definitely want to come to attend the Sutra lectures, because that's when you really flourish. And vice versa. Even if you don't have any samadhi power, you come to the Sutra lectures, you can get samadhi power very quickly too. If I decide to help you. Okay? So, in other words, the Sutra lectures, in my mind, now this is my secret, are even more important than the Chan classes. Because I'm free. I can help you reach the whole spectrum. Which I can't do with Chan. Because in my Chan classes, I want to make sure that I do not offend, alienate the non-believers. You see, my hands are tied behind my back. There's certain things I can't talk about. I can't talk about suffering, for example. Okay? Because suffering offends people. Right? Yeah, even like John Paul II, the late Pope, he says, you Buddhists are so pessimistic. You always talk about suffering. One your major truth is the truth of suffering. You guys are so pessimistic. Okay? A billion people believe his teaching. Okay? So when I go and brandish and wave my Chan flag out there, I try to, there's certain things that I have to avoid to offend. If I realize that some people, like some of my last Chan class students are very faithful Catholics and Christians. Okay? And therefore, there's some things that I can push envelope so far, and I have to back up. In the Sutra lectures, I'm free to roam around and do as I please because I'm making no excuses. I'm trying to get people not even to attend it so that I have more freedom. Okay? But this is this is an incredible class. Let me assure you, because it's even more powerful than the Chan class. So if you decide to come here and take it easy and relax, then you're certainly welcome to do that. You come here and with a mindset of working hard and seeking knowledge, increasing your wisdom and making progress, you will. All right. Any other questions? Anyone cares to talk about the Four Noble Truths? Shall we go into that? It's pretty important Dharma, you wish. You don't have to do that. I'm free to do as I please, remember? Go as deep as I wish, as you wish. The thing you have to realize is that the Sutra lectures are important because I'm really documenting. We're recording a lot of teachings that I did not receive when I did my research in Buddhism. I never knew these things. Okay? And in the future, these lectures will also be translated into Chinese and Vietnamese and what have you. So my challenge then is to, first of all, add to the knowledge base of Mahayana, okay, of Buddhism in English. That means adding to the academian's knowledge, adding to the Darbye books, adding to the Rinpoche Shenhua's explanations of the Mahayana. Okay? Otherwise, why waste your time? I would feel bad to make you come here and waste your gas and time, your efforts into if you can get it somewhere else. Okay? And number two is that when in the future, when they are translated back into Chinese and so on, I'm adding to that as well. Because a lot of Chinese teachers do not have what we have. Okay? So anyway, that's why it's important that you don't realize how the kind of great service you're doing. This is assuming that my lecture is worth anything at all after all. Is that by requesting the Dharma, okay, you're opening a door, you're making something You're adding to the knowledge of Mahayana treasury, knowledge in the West, a big boost, because there aren't that many lectures in Mahayana in English. Remember, Venerable Hong Shu was here lecturing 9 years ago, and he's not lecturing sutras at all when he was here last January. Sutras are where you can discuss the Mahayana principles in great depth. All right. So let me go over the Four Noble Truths quickly. The Four Noble Truths were taught in three turnings. The turning of revelation, the turning of exhortation, and the turning of certification. Okay? Huh? Certification. All right. The turning of revelation, the Buddha says, this is suffering. Okay? Its nature is oppressive. This is accumulation. It beckons. This is extinction. And you can certify to it. Okay? And this is the way you can cultivate it. Suffering is the result of accumulation. Accumulation is the cause, and the suffering is the retribution. If you allow suffering to accrue, if you allow accrual to happen, you end up with a lot of sufferings. Okay? Extinction is also the result for cultivating the way. So the way is the cause, and the way is the effect. So it's a pair of causal effects. All right. So the revelation is that the four things: suffering, accumulation, extinction, and the way. And the next turning, the Buddha then said, "This is suffering. You should." What's the word? You should recognize it. This is accumulation, you should cut it off. This is extinction, you should realize it. And this is the way you should cultivate it. So he says, all these four great things are wonderful. The four great truths are important for you to know. But now you know it, okay? You should cultivate them. Okay? That's why he ends up saying, cultivate it. And number three, the turning a Dharma wheel, the turning of certification. He says, this is the truth of suffering. I've already certified to it. This is the truth of accumulation. I've already cut it off. And this is extinction. I have already realized it. And this is the truth of the path, and I have already cultivated it. I am the end result of that. Okay?
Is accumulation the attachment to everything?
No, it's a build-up.
It's the grasping for the form. What accumulation is accrual of things, or heavy things. Have everything. Our thoughts, or who we are, etc., the scandals.
Yeah.
So is it all of that and everything else is right?
Everything, all the sufferings have a way of drawing one another together to compound things, make things worse for you. That's accumulation. You don't stop. See, the nature of that, the suffering is that if you only have one suffering, it's not a big of a deal. Look at your body. Where it hurts. It hurts all over. It's never one single organ. Okay, I have someone who came to me and said, I have kidney problems. I said, okay, so I have kidney problems. Don't work on it, please. Ignore it. I said, really? Yeah, don't work on it. Okay, so what do I do? Okay, well, we do something about it. We do something, I promise. And guess what? It turns out that the kidney problem is not as severe as arthritis. Arthritis is much more severe at that stage, at this stage. Okay? So all these sufferings have a way of coming together, okay, of drawing one another and overwhelm you. They accumulate. It's never one. They are drawn together, one after another, until you break. Extinction is that you end all sufferings. No more sufferings. All sufferings are ended. You have no more sufferings. Huh?
You ended too.
What ended?
You yourself was
Sorry, if you become extinct and die.
No, extinction and death are different. Extinction and death are different.
Oh, that's not.
You're born when it starts to get.
You start all over again. Yeah. If people accumulating, and then you get extinction, then you start accumulating again, you get more extinction.
No, extinction is that you end suffering, therefore is no more accumulation.
The sufferer is extinguished, not you. The you that's associated with suffering is extinguished.
Yeah, and I'd like to hear about this one.
That's why it's called an Four Noble Truths.
It happens after you travel away for a while.
This is revolutionary knowledge. Trust to the human realm. That's why the first Dhyana God King had to request the Buddha to teach us. He did us a big favor. That's why he's much more respected, even so, than a Christian God for that reason. Okay? He has tremendous merit and virtues for having requested the Dharma. He was the first one, and he called the Christian God, hey, come! And they both actually knelt and requested the Dharma. But he's the one who beckoned, who called the Christian gods, hey, come on over. Let's request the Buddha to teach us. That's why he has incredible merit and virtues. That act alone makes me grateful to him, because I wouldn't be able to practice Mahayana if he didn't request it a few thousand years ago. That simple act of requesting Dharma is that important. Okay? See, you're learning all these wonderful Dharmas. That by doing that, you create so much merit and virtue. That's what enables you to make progress. How do you think you can reach up to, let's say, push an elevator button for an Arhat button? Because you have a lot of blessings. How? By creating it. I have to help you. All the things here we teach you here cannot be simplified. And Chan, I simplify everything as long as I can get you to make progress. Right? I strip it down, Mahayana down to only the level so that I can please the non-Buddhist believers. But here, this is as stripped down as I can get. Now you know why. We request the Dharma, we do all these things for, every single thing is for a reason. All right? Exaltation is cultivated. If there is suffering, you can end suffering. That's revelation. Don't worry. There's something called suffering. Don't get upset. Don't think it's pessimism. Actually, if you recognize suffering and you are suffering, there's a way to end suffering. That's revelation turning. Second turning is that you should do it. Now you know it. Do it. Cultivate it. What are you waiting for? Okay? Just like you know that certain restaurant has the greatest food. What's the point in knowing that unless you go there and taste it? Right? It's no fun in knowing. That fun of knowing is only half. Right? Have to go experience it. That's the exaltation turning. This is so important. The Buddha is very clever. He says, okay, I show you some new truth. Okay? Something very wonderful. But you got to work for it. I'm teaching you a way to work for it. Okay? And he concluded by saying, okay, since you commit to work for it, look at me. I am the end result of that. See, you guys dropped out on me, gave up on me. I invented this path. I discovered this path of cultivation. Okay? I just told you about. But I realized this cultivation path. I succeeded. I want to teach you. Okay? If you work hard, you can get at the same place as I am. That's called certification. You work hard, I certify you will get there. You too can be liberated. You too can end your sufferings. Alright? Show's over. I promise I will try to speed it up. Are you learning anything at all? Is it fast enough? Slow enough?
I think it's wonderful.
It's so easy to please.
He's gonna reach.
Come here.
Is the Buddha gonna come back?
No. He's gone. Shakyamuni Buddha is gone. Next Buddha is going to be Maitreya.
But God, I mean, he's still existing in the star world somewhere in the galaxy.
Of course. He goes on and teaches the next place. What happens is that he came here to teach whoever needs to be taught, and he helped them become enlightened very quickly. Okay, he taught a bunch of bodhisattvas first, which is beyond our realm. Okay, and then he taught the arhats and the humans and the gods, and then after he's done, he went on. He moved on. Okay, it's not like he died or he retired. He just moved on. It's the same thing. When Shenhua came here to teach his disciples, and got to the point where they became clingy, dependent on him. You know, when he was there, they would not make a single decision without consulting with him. Shivu, we need to get more lights here in the Buddha Hall. What do you think? Well, what do you think, Shivu? Even every single thing that's a complaint. I wasn't there, but that's what I was told. That they are so dependent on him that Venerable Shenhua at some point in time said, "Oh, time for you to grow up, learn to make decisions on your own." That's how you learn. Can't be overprotective as parents. Same thing with the Buddha. He moved on so that we have a chance to practice.
Where did he go? You say he moved on.
How would I know? I'm not Buddha. I know it's a trick question, but no, actually, he moved on to the next world. Buddha's.
Another Buddha land?
No, not Buddha land. It's a little bit beyond the scope here, but stick around. That's what the wonderful thing about the nature of the Buddha. You learn more when you go into deeper level of Mahayana sutras. Then you understand where they stand. But that's okay. Just be patient. There's so much to learn here. Learn about noble truths and all those things. Internalize these things. Give it time. And then eventually you see why Buddhas do certain things. That's why eventually, you understand why I can strip down so far certain things. Eventually you need time before you have enough lessons to understand or to receive the explanations. Okay? Let's do the transfers. F5. So then go full screen. May these merits and virtues adorn the Buddha's spirit land, repaying the four kinds of kindness above, aiding the threefold paths below. May those who see and hear all bring forth the Bodhi heart. And when this retribution body is done, be all born in the land of all most bliss. Thank you.
Read the one from